Hi friends, my name is Amanda and welcome back to my YouTube channel, AceKreates. I like to talk about the things that I've been working on and the projects I have finished. I have not checked in with you in a while. I have actually been traveling quite a bit over the last 3 months, and so I haven't had a regular podcast on. I've just been doing some short format content. And so it was time for a full length podcast update. I am still not at home. I actually was at home for a little bit, but I'm actually at my parents' house in Michigan. And so I will be here for the foreseeable future in the next few weeks. And so I thought I would share with you everything that I've been working on and everything that I've finished. We have a lot to talk about. I actually have 5 finished objects to talk about. Some of them I have here with me. Some of them I do not, so I'll just put up photos. Some of them are back home, or some of them were, one was a sample, so I don't have that sample anymore because I turned it in. And then I have two whips to work and talk about with you. And so let's get into the video because it is going to be a long one. And grab yourself something to drink. I've got a little coffee, hazelnut pick-me-up, and my little one's sleeping. So let's see how much we can crank out while my little one sleeps. The first project we're going to talk about is the influencer sweater. The influencer sweater is a Tunisian crochet block sweater that I made as a sample for Sam at Clockwork Fiber. She sent me 9 skeins of her analog DK to make a size medium in this, and I used almost all of those 9 skeins. I actually ran out of one of the colors that I was supposed to use for one of the cuffs, but so I had to kind of pivot after talking with Sam, and we just used Beachcomber, which was the main kind of like color throughout and the light color. And again, I will put up photos of the finished project because I don't have this project with me. But this was a Tunisian crochet sweater. It's a pattern by Jennifer Lovett at violet.loops on Instagram. I have tested and made several of her patterns. I really enjoy her patterns. They're very well written, and this was no exception. It took me just a little bit over about 1.5 months. I was working on several projects at the same time, so I likely could have finished the project a little bit faster had I had just been monogamously working on it, but that's not how I work. And so it took me a little bit over 1.5 months. I actually finished faster than I intended because Sam was going to be at Flock. And so I had to race through the ribbing, which is just regular. So the whole sweater is done with 2 panels, a front and a back panel, and then sleeves that you make flat, and you sew them together onto the body first, and then you sew the seam of the arm throughout down to the bottom, and then you do ribbing around the neck, the cuffs, and the bottom. So it was a lot of ribbing, and so I was in like, you know, ribbing island, which is my least favorite part in crochet, is crochet ribbing. Like I give me knitting ribbing all day long, but I just am not a fan of crochet ribbing. It's just tedious, especially if there's a slip stitch in there. That takes forever. And so I was able to finish it literally the second day of Flock. I finished it like right around the lunch hour, and then I was able to find Sam and give it to her. So I used, like I said, I used her analog DK, which is a untreated, so non-superwash wool. I simply loved working with this yarn. It was so plump and scrumptious, and it was the first time I'd ever worked with untreated wool, and I was really happy with the way it worked. It didn't split. It made a really excellent finished object that will be super warm for Sam. I know that she took that sample to DFW. That's why she had actually several samples made. And so I was really happy to make that and excited to make that. And so it kind of got my itch for sample making. So if you're looking for a Tunisian crochet sample maker, I would be happy to sample make for you in the future. And so it was just a really great, enjoyable experience. And like I said, Jen's patterns are really easy to follow. I just really enjoyed the pattern. If you hear background noise, it's because I've got family in the house. So I will try to cut out as much as I can, but sometimes I can't. So the next pattern, finished object that we're going to talk about is the Explorer Mini Sweater. So I actually have the Explorer Mini Sweater with me on this trip. So this is the Explorer Mini Sweater by Jennifer Lovett, and it's in testing. I believe the pattern comes out mid-November. I'll put the date on the screen if it's available, and I'll also, well, there won't be a link yet, but I will put the date on the screen when I edit this. But this is the Explorer Mini Sweater, which is a mini version of her adult version that she makes. It's a children's pattern, and so I made the size 3T. It's a regular crochet sweater, and the yarn that I use for this project is Color Theory, which is a number 4 worsted weight pattern, but I was able to meet gauge with a 4.5 millimeter hook. The pattern calls for a 4 millimeter hook, but with my color work being super tight, I chose to use a 4.5 millimeter hook, and I was good on pattern with that, or good on gauge. So this is the size 3T. It's a color chart, or color work pattern. The diamonds here grow as the sizes get bigger, so there's more rows of diamonds for larger children's sizes. So this is Color Theory. The main color is Stonewash, and the contrasting color here is Tourmaline. I didn't make many, obviously because this is a test. I didn't make many modifications. The only ones I made were allowed by Jen Lovett, who is the pattern designer. So the modifications I made was making the cuffs of the sleeves the contrasting color, and then the other modification was I shortened the body, although I think she ended up shortening the body in the final pattern. I'm not sure, but I ended up shortening the body pretty extensively. I think it was like 8 or 10 rows, which ended up being like 2 or 3 inches, which was basically enough for the cuff. So I originally was down about here, but I ended up pulling back and shortening the body because even though my toddler is pretty tall for her size, she's actually almost 2, and this is a 3T. And yes, it is big on her, but it'll be nice for her to grow into. So although let's be honest, she screams bloody murder when I try to put this on her. She does not like wearing it. My husband's about the only one that can get this on her. This actually ended up taking me about a month, although most of it I did in about a week. I think I had done just almost the color work chart for about 2 weeks, and then I just blew through the rest, and I was able to finish this before our family went to India for vacation and visiting with family. And so I was able to finish this and get finished object photos of this at the end of August and turn it in to Jen for feedback. I ended up using just almost 2 full skeins of actually probably 1 3/4 skeins of the main color, and then 54 yards of the contrasting color. So I still have quite a bit I probably have 4/5 of the skein, the contrasting color skein. I used about 54 yards between the color work and then the contrasting sleeves. So I would have used more main color closer to what the pattern calls for if I had done the cuffs in the contrasting, but I chose not to. The other modification, it's not really a modification, it's just a personal preference, but when you're doing the cuffs for the body and the sleeves, I chose to stick in a few slip stitch 3s when you're coming back around to the kind of the sleeve end. And that's just because I like cuffs to be a little bit more functional and not decorative. And I just like a little tighter cuff. That's just a personal preference for me because I want to be able to, pull it up and it stay up. I have a couple sweaters I don't have tight cuffs on, and I really regret not making a tighter cuff or perhaps making a smaller sleeve or a more narrow and severe kind of tapered sleeve just to get myself a tighter cuff. I've actually thought about making some modifications on some of my sweaters just to be able to do that. But that's a topic for another podcast. So this took just about over a month to do. Lion Brand Color Theory, 3 skeins of yarn. It's really affordable. So this whole sweater is less than $15 because, and I probably paid less, but I'm just averaging about $5 a skein for this yarn. And I had it in stash, so that was really nice too. So I was able to use stash yarn. So this was actually my first sweater for my daughter, and not the last, as you'll see. And I'm thinking about making another one for my nephew, either a matching one or in his own kind of colors with some of my other stash yarn, if I have enough of the colors. I had more feminine colors of this yarn, so I might either have to choose different yarn or make an exact one, because I still have plenty to make almost an exact one, or maybe he gets a different color here. It's the same body color, but I'm actually going to see him soon for the first time in a long time, and the kids are actually going to meet for the first time, but I have to measure his chest to make sure, because he's pretty big too. He's about 10 months older than my daughter, and so I have to see what his size is, because he busts the charts too. So does my daughter. So that is the Explorer mini sweater. So the next pattern that we're going to talk about is the Indecision sampler sweater. So the Indecision sampler sweater is something that I do not have with me. It's at home, but I will put up finished object photos. It's a Tunisian crochet test sweater that I did for Jennifer Lovett at violet.loops on Instagram. It's a test sweater that I've done for her, and I really love this sweater. It's a choose your own adventure Tunisian crochet sampler sweater, so you get to choose depending on the length of your body and torso, the size that you're making, and then the kind of the stitches you're going to use depending on how many sections you need. There's, I believe, 7 stitches for you to use. The pattern is out now. It came out at the end of September, and so I will put a link to the pattern in the description below. But I made size extra large. I'm looking at my notes, so if I look off screen, that is why. But I made size extra large, and the yarn that I used for this pattern was Aimee Merino DK, and each skein had 252 yards. It's her Merino DK. In the colorway Tidal Whispers, which was a very variegated yarn. I was a little unsure about using a variegated yarn, but it took me several yarns to meet gauge, and I still had to size up a hook. I ended up using an 8mm, and the pattern called for a 6.5 millimeters, so it took me several yarns. I tried some non-hand-dyed yarns that I was trying to use, but I think I've just decided some of that acrylic-based yarn I'm going to use for blankets and stuff, or homemade decor, or pots and things like that for plants. I'm going to stick to using like wool and wool blends for like anything that's going to be on my body or someone else's body. So what's really cool about this sweater is it was done in the round-ish. And I say that because the way she has you join the end before you go return pass, you join it to the front, the beginning. And so the body from like, you know, right under the bust, before you split for your sleeve, here down to the bottom. So it's a bottom up sweater, and it's done in that kind of way to join in the round. It was a really cool technique that I had never done before. And it makes me think, what other sweaters, Tunisian crochet sweaters, could be done in the round in that way, like bottom up. I've always thought about, like, now that I know that, like, could you play around with something? But it was a really cool technique. And then you split for sleeves essentially. And you do a front kind of panel and then a back panel, and then you seam at the shoulder, and then you make 2 sleeves starting at the bottom, before the cuff, and then you make them flat, and then you sew them on. So really the only seaming you have to do is right here, and then the seaming for the underarm. So that was the only seaming I had to do for the project. So that was really nice because seaming is not my favorite. So I really enjoyed that. So I actually only so I made size extra large, and I ended up, which I believe corresponded to a 50-inch bust. I think I made it just about 50 inches once I was blocked. I ended up blocking first the body before the ribbing. Once it was seamed together at the shoulders, I ended up blocking the body, and then I attached the sleeves, and then I had to actually end up taking finished object photos of this in India because it was due while I was in India. And so I took it before I did a final block. So it was blocked, but the sleeves technically hadn't been blocked. So I did a full block when I got home from India in early October. And so I actually only ended up using 5 skeins of yarn, which is crazy for a size extra large. How little yarn I use, because normally, you know, Tunisian crochet will eat up yarn. But also, I just generally it's usually 7 skeins of a DK weight yarn to meet my size. Now I did do a little bit of a cropped sweater, although once I did the final block, it didn't end up as cropped, which is great. I think I was going for, my final size was supposed to be like the 19 1/4, 1975. I think once I did the ribbing, it ended up being pretty close to that. Yeah, I was looking at my notes. I made the 1975 length for more of a crop length. So being the crop length, I think that helped. And so it would have used the 6 skeins. So I had 6 skeins of that yarn. I would have used that 6 skein had I needed more length, but I tend to like a little bit something that hits a little bit below. I usually wear high-waisted jeans, so a little bit below the high-waisted, so that not that I ever tuck in my sweaters, but something like that, because usually I tuck in my undershirt and then wear my sweater. So I ended up only using 5 skeins. I think that it also helped that I was using an 8mm Tunisian crochet hook instead of the 6.5. But I did meet gauge, so I mean that shouldn't have made too much of a difference. But that's, if you're doing this pattern, you're going to use a lot less yarn. It also works up really, really fast. So according to my notes, technically I started this in June 20th and I finished it on September 20th. So that's 3 full months. But I probably was only working on it actively for a month. I had thought about trying to finish it before I got to India, but then the ribbing for the neck, I was gonna have to rip out and redo, and then I had attached the sleeves wrong, and that I was like, leaving the next day, because I didn't want to have to take the project with me. And so, but I ended up having to do it because I attached the sleeves wrong. I missed a direction that I was supposed to do before I attached the sleeves. So I ended up taking it, but it actually ended up only taking me about 3 days to fix and redo everything. And I just turned it in the day it was due or the day before it was due, my feedback and my finished object photos. So it works up pretty fast in the DK yarn. You're not using as much. So I would say that it's a pretty beginner friendly pattern. And it's something, if you want to test the different Tunisian crochet stitches, you can. The only thing that I would say is I would not, if I were to do this again, I would not have the lattice stitch near where the bust. And the reason I say that is because it ended up being the pattern for here as well, like the last section. And I actually had to make a slight modification at Jen's direction to get a clean attachment that didn't look like really big gaping holes here. So I would have perhaps done I would have maybe moved something, maybe had the honeycomb section there or something that didn't have as quite of a holy presence just at the join, not throughout the whole pattern, but right here on the chest. And I don't know if the picture will show it that well, but right here on the chest, right where you have one of the breaks, you'll be able to see that it's a little bit holier. It just is the way the transition worked just on that stitch. None of the other sections were like that. And it's just the transition part. It's fine. It's generally, because it's a little bit of a more open gauge, which again helps with your less yarn usage, which is really great. It led to that. So I was really happy I wasn't going to sign up for that test, but because I had done the shawl version of it, but I'm actually really glad I did that. I still didn't end up ripping out the neck. As I blocked it again, it ends up being okay wearing it. It's a little hard for me to get it over my head. I ended up changing the hook size for, I had originally started with a 5 on the neckline for it. But I ended up changing to a 6, both on the ribbing for the cuffs and the body. I was gonna pull out the sweater, or the neckline, but I was also working on ribbing for other things too, and I was like, I don't want to do it again. I just want to block it and see how it turns out, and I'm okay with the neckline. It was a really fast make, even though it says it took me 3 months. I do have my pattern notes, so I'll link my project pattern updated on Ravelry, so I'll link my project up below so you can take a look. And so that is the Indecision Sampler Sweater by Jennifer at violet.loops. The next pattern that we are going to talk about is the classic cabled sweater. The classic cabled sweater is a Tunisian crochet test sweater that I finished for Ashley at Tiny Couch Crochet, Ashley Rivas. It's a sweater it's a test sweater for her book that will come out next year. And this is the beautiful sweater that I am wearing. I will also put up some finished objects. The color is not quite so accurate on those FO photos. It kind of blows out the pink. This is a little bit more accurate, I would say. Still a little bit bright. It is a very bright pink, but it almost looks a little electric here on camera. I'm using my laptop camera, so hopefully it turns out great, but the photos make it look a little bit more blown out and a little bit more like red pink. It's definitely a pink sweater. The yarn that I'm using for this, that I used for this project, was the Malabrigo Arroyo in the colorway Fuscia. It's a sport weight yarn. You get like 330 or so yards per skein. I ended up using 7 skeins of yarn. So this is, I'll stand up, but this is the sweater. Ooh, so cute. It's a Tunisian crocheted cabled sweater. It's the first time I've done anything like cables on any type of sweater, whether it's Tunisian crochet or knitting or regular crochet. And I fell in love with her kind of sample photos that she was teasing on her Instagram, and I fell in love with it. I had done one of her patterns before. It was really well written. So I had done the August Tunisian tank from her kind of pattern library earlier this year, and I really liked the way she had done things to look a little bit more like knit. And I know that knit is a separate craft, but for those of us that like, I like the idea of something that looks like knit. And yes, you can make that as knit, but that's what I really love about Tunisian crochet, is that kind of blend between crochet and knitting. And so this is size large, which I ended up with 47 inches as the bust. I'm generally around a 43-inch bust. It's less than the pattern calls for. It's just a personal preference. I didn't want anything too big. So I actually did the size large. I think the extra large might have been a 50-inch bust or close to that, but I had signed up for the large because I knew I wanted something a little bit tighter, something a little bit just more form-fitting, especially for a cabled sweater. I didn't want anything too loose, and I love the kind of the fit of this sweater. It's done in panels. So first you do the front panel, and it has this like beautiful, I mean, just the way her brain, the magic behind this pattern, the way she thought up every detail, it's just such a classic piece that I can see in my wardrobe forever. And I love the color. I love just a good pink sweater. Pink looks really good on my skin tone. And so, like, look at this neckline and the decreasing here. And then this folded over collar here. It's the perfect size. She did a really great job, like, what am I trying to say? She did a really great job at like the pickup rate. Just, I didn't have to put any extra like slip stitch 3s or anything. So I followed pattern and I trusted pattern, and it turned out really, really great for that. And it's just really gorgeous. So you do the front panel first, and it's just like a repeat. I forget how many rows and all that, but it's like a repeat of several. I think you have 5 or 6 cables for my size repeats. And Tunisian crochet cables are actually easier than one thinks. You just need an extra Tunisian crochet hook, either the same size or a size bigger or smaller. I think I ended up using half a size smaller, and they're actually really easy. It was a really easy pattern to memorize. So it was really quick for me to kind of go through once you get the first row or two, and then you do the first like 7 rows up to like that first pattern repeat, and then you do another pattern repeat, and it was really like easy to memorize and follow in pattern. And so once you get cast on, it's super easy. I'm really excited for this pattern to come out and for the book to come out, because I've seen some of her other stuff that she has previewed for the book or is in testing for the book, and I really want to make some of that stuff. So this took, I think I said 7 skeins. I have just about almost a full skein left. I think I ended up using about 2,100 skeins, although I don't have technically the final yardage because I don't have a weight scale here to measure this, but I like barely just broke into it just to finish either the arm or the body cuffs or both or something like that. The ribbing detail here is a little bit different. This took forever. I mean, this took me like a day and a half to do this, but the body and the cuffs for the arm were not as slow, just because of the differences between what you're doing here. It's definitely not a beginner friendly pattern. I would call it intermediate. You just have to be able to read your pattern, so you know when the repeats are. You can mark that too. So I ended up marking like the first cable when I was on that row that makes you do the cable. I would mark that, and then it would repeat, and so I could count my rows there. So you definitely have to be able to read your make. And it's just, and the seaming and everything together, I just wouldn't, if you're a beginner, this is not what I would do as my first pattern. But if you're an adventurous beginner, you might consider it. And if you're definitely intermediate or advanced, definitely add this to your wardrobe. It's a sport weight pattern. I said that. So I was able to meet gauge with the Malabrigo Arroyo. It ended up taking me about 3.5 months or so. I started this on July 20th and I was finished on October 27th. Yeah, so that's like almost 4 months. July, August, December, no, 3 months. And I don't know why it's giving me a plus sign up. My computer's a little weird right now. So it ended up being about 3 months to do. She was gracious enough to give us an extra 2 weeks on our deadline. I didn't end up crocheting as much as I thought I would in India. And so I only crocheted towards the end and then the plane ride home, because I was actually alone on my plane ride home. My family went separate from me after me, because I had to fly to Seattle, pick up our dog and our car at our friend's house, and then drive home to be able to pick them up in Los Angeles. So I had some plane time to finish the sleeves. I finished the body, both body panels, before I left for India at the end of September. And then I finished the arms before I came to Michigan, and then I basically finished the ribbing here in Michigan before I turned it in. And so definitely check out this pattern when the book comes out. I will keep an eye out for when the book is out for pre-order, so you can add it to your pre-order list. And I'll update all that in like future podcast episodes, as well as my social media once there's a date and everything for it. But I really love what she's doing with Tunisian crochet. She is thinking super outside of the box, and I've seen just some of her stuff I've wanted to test for, but I either don't have the yarn in stash, and I'm really on a kick to not buy yarn, and so I just didn't have the appropriate amount of yardage for something in my stash. But perhaps in the future, when I have the opportunity, I will definitely be looking at some of her patterns. So this is the classic cabled sweater from Ashley Rivas in an upcoming future book of hers. So the next object that I am going to update you on, it's a finished object and my last finished object for the video, and it is the Playdate Tea Light. So the Playdate Tea Light is a pattern by Callie Reedy. I actually have made an adult version of this that I finished as my flock object, and I'll put a finished object photo of it. But I made a children's version for my daughter, and I just finished it last night. So I just have to weave in a couple ends, but it's actually been blocked. It's still a little damp. I have to put it back on the mat that I have it drying on. But this is the Playdate Tea Light. It is made with a Porter Wool & Company fingering weight yarn. I don't know the exact colorway because I got this at the LA Yarn Crawl in 2022, and I had it wound up for a different project that I didn't end up doing. And so I thought, well, this would be it's a 1 skein project for me. And because of the yardage that the pattern calls for, I made the size that corresponded with a 21-inch bust. which I think corresponds with either a 2 or 3T. I'm not exactly sure, but I did it based on what the Craft Yarn Council had said. My daughter is almost 2, but she's a little, she's on top of the charts for her size. And so she's probably closer to a 2.5-year-old. And so I've tried, like, I put this up against her. It seems like it's going to fit her. The only thing I'm concerned about is over her head. So I'm not sure the colorway, but it's this gorgeous pink. You can definitely see it's definitely a more muted than the cabled sweater that I'm wearing below it. But it's a variegated yarn. I was able to use less than 1 skein. I actually still have quite a bit left, which I was surprised at because I think I was supposed to use pretty close to a full skein for her size. I'm not sure, but maybe I didn't measure my final gauge. Maybe I should do that. Okay, so I just measured my gauge. I definitely did not meet gauge on this, so that probably explains why I have a ton of yarn left. I looked at the pattern again. I should have had some yarn left, not knowing what this original skein was, but I imagine it's anywhere from 400 to 437 or so yards, I would imagine. Not knowing how many was originally because I don't have the label still. I should have had at least 50 to 180 or so yards left, 80 or 90 yards. So maybe that is close to this, about a third of a skein. But I also don't know the final weight because I don't have a weight, but I'm definitely tight on my gauge. I'm at 27 stitches and I'm supposed to be at 24 stitches. So I definitely didn't swatch this. So mental note, if I make this again, I probably should make a size up because I'm just a tighter knitter. So yeah, let's hope this fits her. It is measuring smaller. So when I did place it out, I don't have like blocking mats here. So I just placed it out. I did stretch it out to be, probably about 22 to 23 inches, but knowing that it would shrink down a little bit, but it shrunk down a lot. So I'm actually only measuring about 20 inches and I should be at 21 inches. So let's hope this fits her. Maybe by the time I edit this, I'll have a photo of her in it. Although she doesn't like things being put over her head. It's a sore spot for me. But I also didn't do a great job at the cast on. I was supposed to use, I think, a German twisted cast on or a German something cast on to be a little bit stretchier. I don't know that. I should have looked up a video, but I didn't. I was like, I'll block it and it'll be fine. Now, I did put this over her head once when I was still making it. So hopefully it will be fine. It does stretch out quite a bit as the neckline. So it should go over her head. But that is the sweater minus the ends that I still need to weave in. I've weaved in some ends, but not all. I didn't make any modifications. I actually screwed up. I forgot to make this a smaller hook. So I ended up just repeating that error throughout. And so all of my ribbing is the same ribbing, 3.5 millimeters as the body. So that will also help too, because it's a lot bigger because I was supposed to actually have a smaller needle size. I thought that the yarn did a really great job it's the same skein, but it doesn't show much pooling or anything, which just is a great testament to a great dyer. So I'm really pleased with that. And even when I picked up for the yarn, you can't really tell because I did the body first. Everything through about here is all in the same pattern order, not pattern order, but like yarn order, just naturally throughout the skein. And then one of the sleeves I pulled from the center because I was a little worried about like the yarn being a different color perhaps, but I thought the sleeves turned out really well, and like you can't really tell that this you know, I don't know how many rows, and then the ribbing is pulled from a different part of the ball. But I'm really happy with it. I love the cute little detailed of the raglan increases here. It's a yarn over for it. I actually, when I made the adult version, because I'm more of a beginner knitter, I actually had to write down every time I did a row, and then I did the increase row, and then I did just a regular knit row. This time I was able to read my knitting and count, and then get to the appropriate number of stitches, which was really great because then I didn't have to write it all down. I also forgot my journal here in Michigan, so I actually don't have all my notes from this final project. But I'm participating in, the reason I cast this on was I wanted to participate in the Playdate Tea knit along on Instagram, and so I have done that, and this is actually the final week for it, so I will have a finished object. I actually could have done this really so much faster than I did. I actually, from cast on to cast off date, we're only talking about a month, so that's really short in itself, but I could have been even faster. I just was working on this and finishing this by the deadline, and I actually cast on another project, a more serotonin based can't get it out of my head kind of project, and so this took a month. Definitely could have been done faster. I had actually done much of the yoke and the split for sleeves within a week. So I actually had done much of the yoke and the split for sleeves within a week. The original first week of the crochet along, or the knit along. I will definitely be making another one of these, especially as long as she fits in one skein projects, because it's super easy to make, and it only uses one skein of yarn. I really like that the children's version also has a lightweight version, so you can use fingering weight. The adult version only has a DK weight pattern. I would love to see Callie a fingering weight update to the adult version, and would be happy to test it, just because I have some yarn in my stash that I think would make a great t-shirt, and I can make this project no time flat, even as a beginner knitter, and so I'm really, really happy with it. So again, that is the Playdate Tea Light by Callie Reedy. So the next project we're going to talk about is a work in progress, and we're going to talk about my stripe pipe. So the stripe pipe is making its appearance on the podcast. I have now finished up everything that I had testing deadlines and everything for. So this is just working on a project for me. No test deadlines, no nothing. And it was something that I've seen Leslie at Knit California make and a couple other people make. And I was really itching to cast on a stripe pipe. And I knew I wanted to use stash yarn. I don't have all the yarn with me that I'm going to show you, but it was just something I couldn't get out of my head. I knew that I was going to add it into my queue. I didn't think I was going to add it into my queue this early, because it's something that I haven't done before. So I haven't done a drop shoulder sweater for knitting. I've only done Tunisian crochet or regular crochet drop shoulder sweaters. So this was my first time doing a drop shoulder. I'd only done a raglan in the round, starting at the yoke. And so I knew that this was something that was going to test my skill set, because I've really only done in the round and I haven't done a lot of purling, but I actually, hot topic, or what is it called? Hot take. I actually don't mind purling. I would actually rather purl than German shirt row. There's that for you. But I picked out colors that I had in stash, and I had it in my queue up in my yarn stash, and I just couldn't get it out of my head, and so I had to cast it on. So the yarn that I'm using for this project, so the main color is Botanical Yarns. It's a speckled cream that they did. It's their exclusive colorway from the 2023 Woolen Folk Disaster Fiber Festival. And I know that they got hit really hard with what happened at Wool and Folk, so I had ordered a couple skeins from them from the exclusive colorway. And it's this really gorgeous speckled cream. I don't have full skeins with me. I only have what I've wound up. So hopefully you can kind of see it's a little washed out, but because of my lighting here. But there's like pink and orange and green and yellow and like speckles mostly. And then there's like random like pops of blue and things like that. It's a really great yarn. It's her fingering weight yarn, and I think there's 425 meters. I don't know what that is in yards, but there's 425 meters a skein. And so I'm holding this double because it's fingering weight, because the pattern calls for DK weight yarn. The pattern is by Veronica Lindbergh. I forgot to say that in the beginning, but it's a well done pattern by Veronica Lindbergh, Kotova Kika on Instagram. So the main colorway is that cream from Botanical Yarns, and then I'm using Stash Yarn, all of its Woolberry Fiber Company, just random colors that I have. I'll put, if I can find it on my camera roll, I'll put the full list of colors. It's not the best shot, like brightness wise, to get the true kind of sense of the colors together, but I was going for like a rustic autumn with this. And so the stripes are Woolberry Fiber Company, just random skeins that I have. And this is where I'm at. So I have split for sleeves, join the body, well, not split for sleeves, but join the body in the round. It's because it's drop shoulder, you do the back panel first. So I did that. I think it got to about one main color stripe after the change of the contrasting color. And then I've joined it in the round. And I am on the second stripe here, main color stripe after the second contrasting color stripe. So I only have one more of this yellow. So the blue is drop cloth. I don't know what collection or anything that's from. And then the yellow is Bee's Butt, which was actually, this skein is from her 2022 solstice, like summer solstice box. And it was the main 100 gram skein. I forget, it was like an 8-day box or something like that. But Bee's Butt, and then I'll have one more color, and if I found the photo, if not, I'll just describe it. It's like a rustic red, orange rustic. I was originally gonna do like a pink because the speckles have this like bright pink, but just the pink just didn't seem to go well with all the other colors that I had in mind. And so because I was going more for like a rustic fall inspired colors, they're more muted. I just didn't think it would go well. So it's more of like a rustic red colorway, which will be the body, like the last color. And then I will have a chocolate brown. Again, don't remember the colorway name or anything like that, but it was likely from a, I'm just trying to think of what sets I ordered. Maybe her Downton Abbey or her Anne of Green Gable monthly set, because I remember ordering that back in 2022 or 2021. And so so that's one, and then that chocolatey brown, and then like more of like an army green, or like a camo green for the other sleeve. And I chose to do those, the brown and the green on the sleeve, because they're not my favorite colors. I wanted the blue right next to my eyes because I have blue eyes. And so the green is actually from a sock set. I think it was the sock set that came with she held like a virtual retreat, and I think that that's what it was. I have it in my stash of my Ravelry library, and of course, in the moment, I cannot find it. Oh, here it is. It's called Forest Walks. It's like a muted green, and it came with like a pink and cream mini skein that I won't be using for this. And so my plan, because I saw Leslie from Knit California do this. The pattern calls for some of it, but it also didn't call for anything. But my plan is on the neckline, when I do the neckline, the top color here is going to be the red, which will be the bottom color of the body. And then the sleeves are going to have a tip of the blue. And then the body, no, I don't know. Now I'm thinking I might do the body, the tip of the blue, and then the brown or the green, whatever one I do here, will be the tip of the sleeves here, I think. I think that's what I'm going to do, but who knows? But this is where I'm at. It's actually working up really fast. It's very potato chippy, which means I just want to get to the next stripe. And so it's been working up really fast. I cast this on the 18th, but I've pretty much been exclusively of October or 17th. I've been pretty much exclusively been working on this project since I came to Michigan. Once I got this off my hooks, which was October 27th, I got this off the hook. So I've pretty much only been working on this besides finishing up the last sleeve I had of the Playdate tee. So I've just been working on this, and it's November 4th. Go vote tomorrow or today. Well, I don't know when I'm going to have this light, but I hope you voted. And so I've just been working on this exclusively since October 28th. So I've gotten a far way. I only had the blue and the yellow with me, and the cream color. So I can only go as far as one of the main color stripes after the yellow. And then I have to kind of set this down until I get home, which is sad, because I think I'm going to be done, not tonight, but maybe tomorrow. And I'll have to pick up another project. I did bring one more project with me that's a work in progress. I actually brought one more whip because I knew I was going to finish this and the Playdate tee, so I just needed to finish them. And then I brought this as my main project, and then I have another one knowing that I didn't bring all the yarn for this because I flew Spirit, so I had very limited space. And so that is my stripe hype. I will put in a marker about where we are so that the next time we check in, you can see my progress, but it's going really, really fast. I was actually really proud of the pickups. I've never done I've done arm pickups, obviously, and sleeve pickups. I've never been really happy with my sleeve pickups. I don't mind them except for the underarms. I don't know if I'm just not doing it right, but I always end up with a hole, and I just end up having to sew together or duplicate stitch underneath or whatever. So, but I was really happy with my pickup, and it's going to be really hard to see, but I'm just happy with the way that looks. I don't think the sleeves are going to pick up quite as cleanly, especially where I've been cutting the yarn, which, it's fine. I've been working in some ends in every day, so that way I'm not waiting till the end to do all of the ends, but I wasn't sure if I should just carry it up, but I don't really know how to do that, and I didn't, because each stitch or each section is the same number of stitches, and it's a pretty large section. It's about an inch. I wasn't sure if I should do that, so I just have been cutting, and it is what it is, but it's definitely left in some weird wonky edging, between the changing of the yarn and adding in the new yarn and all of that. But I'm really pleased with this. I am making size large. I didn't mention that, but I'm making size large. Which I think corresponds with maybe a 47-inch bust. I'm not sure. I'll put it in the project notes, but about a 47-inch bust. I didn't want this. It's supposed to have 10 inches of positive V's, which means I'm supposed to make the next size up extra large, which I think is a 52 or 53-inch bust. And I was like, nope, I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to wear it. I already have one sweater that I love that is not getting as much wear time because I had tested the 2XL. I'm actually considering about like frogging that sweater and just remaking it in a smaller size. I've just found that I don't like super baggy sweaters, especially textured sweaters. I don't really like super baggy sweaters. So I want to be realistic about what I'm going to wear. And so that's why I'm not making it as oversized as the pattern calls for. Yeah, so this is my stripe pipe. I'm using Botanical Yarn as my main color and Woolberry fingering held double. So everything's fingering held double. And I'm looking forward to seeing this project work up. So that is my stripe pipe. So the last project that I'm going to update you on is my Tulsta tee. So the Tulsta tee is a tee by Rebecca Clow, the Crayabea on Instagram, and it's been on the podcast before, and there's not been much of an update. I have not worked on this. I've had other priorities throughout my crafting, and this is one that didn't have a deadline. So this is a project that I really haven't been working on at all. I did get to halfway through the decreases, so this is the neck line. It's actually a pretty wide neck now that I'm looking at it. But I'm like halfway through the decreases. I don't have my notes with me, so I'm a little worried about the pickup because it's a lot harder to read my stitching here just for the increases, but I'm going to do my best. But I think I was about halfway through the increases for this, and so this is going to be my project as soon as I finish the stripes that I have the yarn for the stripe pipe. This is going to be my main kind of whip throughout the rest of my trip here. I have like 2.5 more weeks here, and so I suspect I'll be done with that stripe pipe where I had the yarn for in the next few days. So I'll be picking this up. So by the time we meet next, I will definitely have more progress with you. I will definitely probably be done the increases and maybe even split for sleeves and some of the body. But I am using Explorer Knits and Fiber, Denali sock. I think the colorway is Spindrift, although I remember when I got it off of a D-stash, it was called Fake Spindrift, and I don't know what that means, but it's this like minty green. It's not coming out. It's coming out really like washed out here and more blue, but it's definitely more green in this. And I'm using the like fingering 4-ply version and not the DK weight version. I have 3 skeins of this. I actually think I'll only need 2 skeins. But we'll see. I'm making size large, which I think will actually give me either no ease or negative ease, but that was just a personal preference. And instead of making the extra large. So I will have much more of an update on my Tulsa tee by the time we next meet. So that is it. That is all my projects for updating you on. Lots of finished objects, couple of whips. Thank you so much. If you stay tuned throughout the whole video, I really appreciate it. If you are new to my channel, consider subscribing so you can be alerted when I upload new videos. I do occasional long form content. I do much more frequent short form content. And I will be back home soon, so I'll be able to get back into the swing of recording and getting things scheduled for you and updated more frequently so that we're not doing 5 finished objects in one video, because that's a lot to sit through. I like to keep my podcast closer to like 30 or so minutes per and not much longer than that. And this will be a long one. So if you hung in there, I really appreciate it. Give it a big thumbs up if you like this video, and consider subscribing if you are not. Thank you, friends, so much for watching. I will also be attending the SoCal Fiber Festival. So if you're heading to the SoCal Fiber Festival in November, in a few weeks, come find me or send me a DM on Instagram and we can meet up. I will be hanging out both days, doing just a lot of stitching. I've also considered submitting the sweater to the contest. I don't know. I only have a few days to figure it out, and then I would have to ship it to them. But I might submit this sweater as one of the, I don't know, contests. We'll see. But I will definitely be wearing this sweater one of the days, and I'm not sure what other sweater I will be wearing for the other day, but I might have a podcast up before the festival. Thank you so much for watching, friends, and I will see you in the next video. Bye now.